Hall of Famer, Dikembe Mutombo. I wish I could say all of the names, okay, because he was a friend of mine since our days at Georgetown here in Atlanta as well. You know, we had that storied history with the Hawks as well, and even wanted to buy the team. Dikembe Mutombo has passed away. He died of brain cancer, just 58 years old. And when I tell you the best of the best, never stop thinking about his people, as he would say, in Congo. Just wonderful. Dikembe Mutombo, an NBA Hall of Famer, finger-wagging center who spent much of his post-basketball career as an ambassador for the sport, has died of brain cancer. Just 58 years old, the NBA announced Monday. Mutombo's family revealed 2 years ago that he was undergoing treatment in Atlanta for a brain tumor. The NBA said he died surrounded by his family. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said in a statement, Dikembe Mutombo was simply larger than life. On the court, he was one of the greatest shot blockers, defensive players in the history of the NBA. Off the floor, Dikembe poured his heart and soul into helping others. There was nobody more qualified than Dikembe to serve as the NBA's first global ambassador. It's true. Silver continued. He was a humanitarian at his core. He loved what the game of basketball could do to make a positive impact on communities, especially in his native Democratic Republic of the Congo and across the continent of Africa. I had the privilege of traveling the world with Dikembe and seeing firsthand how his generosity and compassion uplifted people. He was always accessible at NBA events over the years with his infectious smile, deep, booming voice, signature finger wag that endeared him to basketball fans of every generation. Let's talk about his Hall of Fame career. 7'2" Mutombo played 18 NBA seasons. Georgetown product, was the league's top defensive player 4 times. He earned 3 All-NBA selections. He played in 8 All-Star games. He ranks 20th in rebounds, 12,359. He finished with 3,289 career blocks, second only to Hakeem Olajuwon. Mutombo followed most blocks with that playful finger wag of his, that right index finger, a gesture that became his enduring signature and inspired many others after him. He was inducted into the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame in 2015 after averaging 9.8 points, 10.3 rebounds per game for his career. ESPN filling in the stats on the great Mutombo. Following his playing career, Dikembe worked extensively for charitable and humanitarian causes. He served as an ambassador for the sport, particularly in the development of the Basketball Africa League, which completed its second season in 2022. Mutombo spoke 9 languages. He founded the Dikembe Mutombo Foundation in 1997. Concentrating on improving health, education, quality of life for the people in Congo, his foundation led the building of a 170-bed hospital in Kinshasa, capital city. That facility has treated nearly 500,000 people, regardless of their ability to pay for care. Boy, he was so proud of that hospital, thinking about his late mother and the things that she had endured. Philadelphia 76ers center Joel Embiid said Monday, "It's a sad day, especially for us Africans." I mean, he inspired a whole generation of players and really the whole world, because other than what he's accomplished on the basketball court, I think he was even better off the court. He's done a lot of great things. He did a lot of great things for a lot of people. So he was a role model of mine. Mutombo's beloved son, Ryan, following in his father's footsteps at Georgetown University, posted this tribute to his father on Instagram. I'm going to try to get through it. What a beautiful picture of the pair. And he was his father's size, but the son talks eloquently in this posting about his father's giant footsteps.
With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show.
At times, I thought of my dad as a superhuman. You were not alone, Ryan. The child in me would sigh to hear that this was never actually the case. My dad was a regular man who would stop at no lengths to honor the world, its people, and its creator. He loved others with every ounce of his being. That's what made him so accessible. That's what made him real. Dikembe Mutombo was salt and light, and today, on the 30th of September, he has been called to rest. I love you, Dad. Rest easy. You know, I said I was going to try, Mayor, to get through this one. I adored him. Never a finer human being. I remember seeing him locking eyes as his 7'2" frame was coming across the hilltop, my fellow Hoya at Georgetown University. And the only thing that was bigger than his size, Mayor, was his heart. I mean, we still kept in contact. We'd have brunch, we'd work out together here in Atlanta. And I just always wanted Dikembe to give me advice. He was into everything, but it was all about helping people. He wanted to help people. That's why he built that hospital. That's why there's Mutombo coffee to this day. I remember he invited my sweet daughter and I, in one of the last times we were together, to his office. And he was so proud of this Mutombo coffee, which is great, by the way, it tastes great. Because he said, Sharon, you know, in that thick accent that he had, do you know how much coffee the United States Army alone purchases? The women in my beloved Congo, they go into the fields and into the mountains and they harvest this coffee and they don't get hardly anything for it.
6'7" was his size, but giant was his heart. Giant was his efforts, and I'm more with you. Not that I had a personal relationship with him, but just because of what the Congo meant, like learning about people of the Congo and what Congo means to us as Black people. We are reminded that regardless of how much we suffer and are suffering through things, we still can and do survive, thrive. And that's what Mutombo's story is. You know, Sharon suggested that she wished she could say his name. I think in this point, in this manner, it's important that we do say all his names because his name represents. In his name, we see his family tradition, Dikembe Mutombo, Mopalando, Makambo, Jean Jacques. That's that European influence, right? And we are reminded that it was King Leopold who did so much damage and harm to the people of the Congo when he killed a million to get the rubber out of the trees when the Congo was a thriving space by itself, meaning it's so rich in resources. It's actually the richest place in resources. So it's when I hear you say that Mutombo told the story about Black people still being exploited, Black nations still being exploited by white capitalism and white desires, it breaks my heart. But it also reminds me that ground as fertile as the Congo and as unstable as the government is, still can produce diamonds like Dikembe Mutombo. So I definitely hear you, and I'm with you on that.
I mean, Mayor, he was so generous. He had basketball money. I remember us talking just at Georgetown, and people don't realize how brilliant his mind is. He wasn't there to play basketball. He was there to become a doctor. And I remember him saying that he didn't even tell his parents he was at Georgetown. He couldn't go home a lot, if at all. And they didn't know anything about this basketball. And it took Coach, may he rest in peace, Thompson, others, when it finally, you know, he's about to graduate here, to explain to his parents that, well, no, Mommy and Daddy, I won't be a doctor. And here's why. I have this other thing going on called the MBA, and millions of dollars, but you have my word, I will use this to help. He spent so much of his time and money and raising more just so he could keep the promises that he made. Keep those promises. And still, as Ryan, his son, said, he wanted to help others. You know, I was looking at our old text today, and there was an issue he was helping me with just my daughter uh, in a school. I desperately wanted to get her in. I thought it would match her educationally. And he worked hard and said, okay, when are we going to have the conversation with this mutual friend? And I can help and I'll do this or do that. Whenever he talked, I just listened. But integrity, there were times we would talk about things that were going on in our city, the world. And make no mistake about it, this was a man of faith who would not turn his back on the integrity aspect. I just feel so much for his beautiful Rose, his beautiful wife, his kids, Mutombo Foundation, Mutombo Coffee, everything else he was working on. You want to talk about somebody who packed a lot in, so much in for those 58 years. I said it, Mayor, I don't know a better human to have achieved the Hall of Fame in basketball. And that's not even going to be the first thing we think about. What say you?
Yeah, I think, much like Jimmy Carter, Dikembe Mutombo's life is not defined how he was introduced to us. We knew Jimmy Carter as a president, but his legacy is so much more. And I think the same is true in that respect about Dikembe Mutombo. And I think it's also important to say that, like, when you tell the story about his parents and him not wanting to tell him about the NBA, some folk in America tend to believe that what's going on in America, everybody knows about it in the world. But I think in 2015, I did a campaign. I was working on a campaign for someone who went to school in Ohio, but was from the Democratic Republic of Congo, who wanted to run for president. Eddie Deshume he went to school and he was going back home to run. And we had started thinking about building a new party, a political party. And some of the parts of Congo we were going, people didn't even know what America was. Like they were living their lives, like
Yeah.
this whole different world, disconnected from everything outside. And it was so beautiful to be in those spaces and not have people crippled by their idea of what America is and how great it is. So I can't even imagine what that conversation was like, his dad and his mom, because I'm certain they knew where doctors were. Talking about you're gonna be a professional basketball player probably made no sense to them.
Yeah, he
But
said he had to be sensitive because being a doctor was everything to his father in particular. And he was not going to achieve that, but ultimately they understood. Okay, they understood. And the times that he told me about going back, and he's a humble person, but the streets flooded and they loved him because he never forgot. His was not just this American dream. He knew the wealth of his people and the riches of his people, and he wanted to stay connected in every way. That's who he was. And I just want to say, we love you, Dikembe, and we will remember you always. You were great to me, a good friend, and you were great to my daughter. I still have this picture of his giant shoe and my daughter, kind of comparing hers to his, and my mother, who's barely 5 feet, standing next to him, a giant. And the world of basketball, including in Africa, is better for Mutombo, but just the world is better. This one, you don't have to add anything to it. This story as it's written, I mean, I really felt like he could do anything. It's, the only thing he couldn't do was stay.
Hmm.
That's the only thing he couldn't do. We salute you.